Everybody's favorite. It's hard to think of a bigger punching bag on the Nintendo Switch than Nintendo Switch Online. This thing was completely free for like the first year and a half the system was available. Playing online multiplayer was completely free of charge. You could play Splatoon 2, ARMS, Mario Kart 8 Deluxe for as long as you want, for as free as you want, until around September of 2018. And they were originally planning to make online multiplayer paid for like around the fall of 2017, but they delayed it a year. I still don't understand why, but they did, and they detailed how Nintendo Switch Online was going to be $20 a year and include, online multiplayer, something that, we were getting for free for that entire year and a half. So, like that, you're not really selling me on this yet, but Nintendo had an ace up their sleeve. It was to offer NES games. Are you not impressed? Yeah, people weren't too happy with this, mainly because oh man, I have to spend $20 a year to play Splatoon 2 online, and your reason for the price increase is just because you put Balloon Fight on Switch? Yeah, I always kind of looked at this as Nintendo didn't really want to do much work to make their online multiplayer worth a damn. Like, they didn't really want to invest into actual servers and all that stuff, and instead they were like, okay, well, we're just gonna put online multiplayer into our retro game subscription. And I think the reasoning for that is to kind of get the modern gamers and the retro gamers to kind of come together. People who only give a damn about playing Urban Champion, well, they'll buy Nintendo Switch Online to play that, but that might incentivize them to dip their toe into the online multiplayer games like Smash Brothers Ultimate and Splatoon 2 and ARMS. And the same goes for the online multiplayer gamers, people who are only interested in playing Splatoon. They might dip their toes into the NES Online and learn why people don't give a damn about NES Tennis. Maybe that's why they did this. Maybe they just wanted to create one big subscription service. I don't know. I think it's kind of a flawed mentality. It's something where the online multiplayer people, they're kind of upset because now they're paying for online multiplayer and it's not better than what it was before they had to start paying for it. And they get all these NES games that they don't care about. And then all the retro gamers, well, they don't really like subscription services. So it's just well, damn, you're not pleasing anybody here. But ever since its launch in 2018, I think Nintendo's done a pretty serviceable job of kind of inching up to making Nintendo Switch Online worth the $20 a year. I mean, they added more systems in the form of Super Nintendo and eventually N64 and Sega Genesis, a part of the expansion pack, which, isn't a part of the $20 tier, but, I digress. But I want to take a look at the NES Online app and kind of just see, where it's at and just see, hey, how does this feel as a subscription service for retro Nintendo games? So let's take a look. So I'm taking a look at this in late September of 2022. And yeah, especially compared to the original launch in September of 2018, yeah, this is a fair amount better. We have most of the main Nintendo games that you'd want, like the Marios, the Zeldas, Metroid, Kid Icarus, even all the ones that you don't care about, like volleyball. But there are a couple things missing that is just these are Nintendo-owned properties, Nintendo-owned games, Nintendo-developed games, that, they may not be the best, but it's just didn't care about putting volleyball on here, so why not put on those? They just very recently added pinball to the service. I think they just have a couple of these garbage games. I mean, pinball isn't a garbage game, it's just kind of mediocre, but still, they just have a couple of these old school black box games just waiting to release just for a rainy day. They're just we know nobody cares about these, but we're just gonna save them until it's just oh, damn, okay, fine, it's time to put out pinball. They waited a while to put out Donkey Kong 3 of all games. So, I think they're kind of saving a couple just for when it's kind of been oh man, we haven't put out an NES game in a while, so sure. But there's quite a few games that are kind of damn, you got these out of nowhere, where it's just you got Double Dragon 1 and 2. They got Fire and Ice, which is just a cult classic puzzle platformer game. You even have a couple games from third parties like Gradius and Ghosts and Goblins from Capcom and Konami. You have The Immortal, which was originally by Electronic Arts. Now it's owned by Pico Interactive, but still. Kung Fu Heroes, I remember playing that as a kid. Mappy Land, Mario Brothers. There's quite a few games here and a good selection of NES classics. However, there's a lot of junk. First off, I'd say a big thing that just clutters this whole thing are the special games. So the idea behind these, I'm not actually fully against. What these are pretty much save states at certain parts in these old school games, so then you can kind of play them in a bit of a different way, or in a way where it would be hard to get to that point for newcomers, or even if you played the game before. It's just nice to have a version of this game where you can just jump right in and you can get an experience like further in the adventure, especially for the longer games. So one that I know of specifically would be Dr. Mario. This kind of shows what it's like to play the game after beating level 20, which is the hardest difficulty you can select at first, and it shows a cutscene that not many people know about, because not many people were able to get that far. So they kind of set you up to beat this area pretty easily, and then when you get there, it shows you this cutscene that like not many people have seen, because level 20 at high speed is pretty damn hard. But then when you go past it, damn, level 21. So it's kind of just, I'm not going to be able to do that. But it's an ability to play some games in a form that is kind of hard to get to that point. And it also gives you the ability to see games that are definitely a little harder, or not many younger gamers have been able to experience that late in the game, or with like max power-ups or max stats or any of that. So it's just like Metroid has 2 special versions. This one says, in this version of Metroid, you start at the battle against Ridley. Our hero Samus has all of her equipment, including the Ice Beam upgrade for her weapon. So it's pretty much just a save state right at Ridley. And then this special version, you just got a great head start on your mission to defeat Mother Brain. In this version of Metroid, every power-up, including all power suit weapons and abilities, is available from the start. So yeah, these are kind of cool to have, so then you can kind of experience a game in a different way that you never experienced before, because the game's too hard or too old to really sink your teeth into. But my God, is there any other way they could put these in this app without clogging up the damn library screen? Like, man, these things are everywhere. Like 3 damn versions of Metroid, one after another. I think they're cool to be here, but I mean, damn, kind of come up with a better way to do it. Outside of that, the overall game selection, it's okay to pretty good. There's a lot of great games here, but there's also a lot of questionable games. Eliminator Boat Duel. Many of these kind of feel like they went to some of the cheaper third parties to get games from them. This kind of feels like a mishmash of Nintendo classics, some legitimate third-party classics, and then the games that are kind of the easy ones for anybody to get. So about like those third-party little plug-in-and-play consoles from like At Games or Retrobit, like the Retrobit Generations, or the At Games Legends Flashback console, or all of that, where they kind of get these games from like third parties that are older, like Data East or Pico Interactive, like we saw with the Immortal on NES. Sometimes they'll have Capcom games, but they always have, like, whenever they say, oh, we got Capcom games, it's always fucking Ghosts and Goblins. That's kind of what the selection of games feels like on here, where they just kind of got the games that were pretty cheap to get, just easy to license, easy to get. Like, I don't know why else you'd put the Immortal on NES on here. I don't know why else you'd put City Connection or Eliminator Boat Duel. Sure, these can be considered like retro classics, cult hits, all that, but when you have those, but not more games from Konami or Capcom, it just kind of obviously shows that Capcom and Konami would very obviously rather put out their own games via like collections and re-releases on the Nintendo eShop, rather than license these games for the Nintendo Switch Online app, where Jaleco, I don't really think they're gonna make much money off of a City Connection re-release on the eShop. I think that shows the problem with going in the subscription services route for the retro game re-releases on Nintendo systems, from Nintendo specifically. It makes it harder to get a bunch of different games on this service. And I like this service. I think the emulation on these games is really damn good. These games feel great, they look better than ever, and the fact that you can play these online is a damn treat. I don't really play NES games online much, because like how many NES games have multiplayer that's worth playing online? But the fact that the option is there is wonderful. But it just kind of shows, that whole like be careful what you wish for, and if you do like something, support it when it's out. Don't just wait until it's too late. Back during the Wii U era, when Nintendo was putting out virtual console titles, and they were kind of just trickling them out, doing like 1 or 2 a week sometimes, or 1 or 2 every 2 weeks, and it was kind of the same stuff we got from the Wii Virtual Console. People weren't supporting it, the numbers didn't lie. People just weren't really buying Virtual Console games, and most people kind of suggested like, hey, just do a damn Netflix subscription. Do like a Club Nintendo Premium subscription where you just have all these NES games just available at a moment's notice. It's just like Netflix. I just go in there and I just play the games whenever I want. I don't have to keep buying all these games. I just get one big app that I can just open and just go into, and I can just play all these games. Well, you got that, so stop bitching. I am partially kidding there because both ways Nintendo did things obviously had some issues. The Wii U Virtual Console, they were re-releasing games that were already re-released on the Wii Shop channel, so they weren't exciting. It was like they were trying to make a big deal about Super Mario Bros. 3 releasing on the Wii U Virtual Console. It's just like, we already went through this. Like, damn, shut up. And on top of that, the quality of the emulation wasn't good. Like, the games looked bad. They were dark, blurry. They didn't feel good to play. Like, it felt like, just control-wise, it just felt bad. Like, it felt like there was substantial input lag in those emulated NES games on Wii U. Whereas now, the emulation on Nintendo Switch Online, Nintendo Entertainment System, is damn good. These games feel and look phenomenal. And we do get the subscription service where, we don't have to worry whenever Nintendo announces, hey, we got new NES games coming to Nintendo Switch Online. It's not a matter of like, oh, God, I don't want that one. It's a matter of like, you just don't really care to play it. But it doesn't matter because it's you're not paying any more for for Donkey Kong 3. They're just throwing it onto the service you're already paying for. So it feels kind of weird whenever Nintendo announces new games for this service, and you see everybody going, it's just like, oh no, I don't want that. Or it's just like, I feel like we're already kind of getting our money's worth out of this. Combining the NES and SNES libraries on Nintendo Switch Online, I think that's more than worth $20 a year. Getting pinball is just like, that's just cherry on top right there. I think one of the problems with Nintendo Switch Online is the fact that, we're getting more than our money's worth out of these retro game libraries for only $20 a year. But like that's not what the service is named after. The service is named after the online multiplayer component. So it's just like, it just kind of feels like, I buy a power drill and you just throw a bunch of shit in the box that equates to more than a power drill's worth of money. And I'm gonna be like, well, yeah, I got my money's worth, but I wanted a damn power drill. That's what Nintendo Switch Online feels like most of the time. And while Nintendo is definitely getting a lot better at online multiplayer, many of their games are much, much better in online infrastructure and lobby system, blah, 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 blah. They're getting better at it. But I feel like initially they were kind of like hiding the fact that their online multiplayer kind of stunk by just giving you a bunch of their legacy content as a part of your online multiplayer subscription. And you know what? It makes it kind of worth it, at least now. Back in the day when it initially launched, you got the Mario games, you got Zelda, so it's just like, okay, those are good, but it's just like, outside of that, like, they kind of just launched NES Online with a bunch of the black box games, and I'm like, what, fucking pro wrestling? But one thing that I really like about the games that they've added a lot of, like, these cult classic games that are kind of more so kind of like hidden gems in the NES library. Games like Chrysalis on the NES, and like I mentioned, Fire and Ice. You also have Journey to Silius, and then you also have Vice Project Doom. There's a lot of games that are like, these are kind of like more underground good NES games that not many people know about, and it's really cool that they're here. And then in addition, Nintendo's actually added a bunch of games from the Famicom where you get Super Mario Bros. The Lost Levels. That's nothing new that it's getting re-released, but still cool to have. And then Versus Excite Bike, which was only released in Japan. Really cool that that's here, even though that released on the Wii U Virtual Console, but still, it's good that even though this has been re-released before, that they're continuing the tradition and re-releasing old games that never initially left Japan. You also have that's a Famicom game. This is also a Famicom game, so they're doing some cool stuff with that. And also, we do have Earthbound Beginnings. with one of the stupidest looking custom box arts I've ever seen. I never had like official NES box art, so that's Nintendo's interpretation of Earthbound Beginnings NES box art. Why? I do enjoy having the access to all these NES games without having the need to actually buy them. However, I would like the option to. I think that would be a great option to have, because eventually one day these games are not going to be on this service. You know, I feel like some third-party games may be pulled from the service eventually because their license will expire, and it's like, you know, how much is it really killing Nintendo to keep Star Soldier on NES Online, you know? So eventually I do feel like some games are gonna start getting pulled here, and it's just a situation where I'm like, I would like the ability to just like go through each of these games and like buy them for like, you know, $5 or hopefully less, but buy them and then they download officially on the system, so then they aren't dependent on an internet connection. And these games aren't dependent on an internet connection most of the time, but I believe there's like an online check-in every like couple of days or week or something like that. I forget what it is, but like it requires like an internet check-in every now and then, but not most of the time. So, you know, that's cool that it doesn't need an internet check-in like every single time, but eventually that internet check-in ain't gonna work. You know, that's gonna be years down the line, but still. But overall, how do I rank Nintendo Switch Online, Nintendo Entertainment System in September of 2022? It's okay. NES on Virtual Console definitely had more options, and it kind of hit most of the notes that you'd want it to hit. It had pretty much all the mainstays, where this has a lot of the mainstays, some fucking weird ones too. But it does almost kind of feel like a selection that people would maybe have back in the day. You know, kids might have this collection of like, you know, like some of the big titles like the Mario, Zeldas, Donkey Kong, but then they might have a Crystalis, they might have an Immortal, they might have Kung Fu Heroes or Mappy Land. They just have all these random games, and you know, I think it might be a little more indicative of like an actual NES collection. But you know, it's still kind of lame that we don't get you know, more Ninja Gaidens. We don't have Star Tropics 2, we just have Star Tropics 1. We don't have all the black box NES games. For some reason, Nintendo launched the damn service with basically nothing but black box games, and now they don't even give us Urban Champion. Like, come on, don't be cowards. I'll say NES Online is not very exciting. Now, that might be because it's the NES in 2022, and I think we've had our time to be nostalgic over it, and by now it's kind of like, all right, we've already had these games re-released on damn near everything for the past 20 years. It's no longer that exciting to get Mario 3 on a Nintendo system. It's kind of just damn near expected at this point. So, yeah, that might be adding to the feeling of, yeah, this isn't that exciting. But overall, this isn't half bad. I will give it probably around like a 7.5 out of 10. 7.6 if we get Power Punch 2.